Hey guys, John Rettinger from TechnoBuffalo here. There are a lot of fantastic smartphones, either available now or coming out in the near future, but two of probably the most impressive that are available today are the iPhone 3GS and the Google Nexus One. We're going to put these two behemoths head-to-head in a battery of tests, discussing browser and app speed, text entry, customization and scrolling, navigation, apps, maps, operating system, and some overall specifications, and you guys can determine which phone is best for you. So before we get started with all of the features and functions, let me go over some of the general specifications of the devices because they do vary quite a bit. The iPhone's got a 3.5-inch capacitive touchscreen compared to the 3.7-inch screen on the Nexus One. The iPhone's got a resolution of 320 by 480, and the Nexus One has a resolution of 480 by 800, so a big difference there. The iPhone's processor is 600 megahertz, whereas the processor on the Nexus One is 1 gigahertz, which is quite a bit faster. The iPhone can come in either 16 or 32 gig specifications, whereas the Nexus One comes with a 4 gigabyte of expandable memory, going up to potentially 32 gigs. 5 hours of battery life, talk time on the iPhone compared to 7 on the Nexus One. 300 of standby time on the iPhone compared to 250 on the Nexus One. 3 megapixel camera on the iPhone, 5 megapixel camera on the Nexus One. So right off the bat, Nexus One has an edge in almost all specs that we've gone over thus far. Both have Wi-Fi, GPS, voice commands. They both have app stores. The iTunes app catalog has about 93,000 applications, or a bit more now, and the Android Marketplace has about 20,000. So enough of the stuff that you can't see, let's start with the stuff that you can. I use the browser on a daily basis. It's probably the most important feature that I need in a smartphone. So we're going to compare browsers on both of these devices. The iPhone, of course, is running on AT&T's network, whereas the Nexus One is unlocked and it can be run on either AT&T or T-Mobile. But if you want 3G speeds, that will only be T-Mobile. So to take the networks out of it, because that's going to vary depending on where you are and your network speed, we're running on the same Wi-Fi network here. So it should be a relatively fair comparison. They're connected to the same network. And we're going to load TechnoBuffalo.com, a site that's been put on both these devices before, so it'll simulate the speed of a website that you visit on a pretty regular basis. Let's go ahead and get this started. We'll queue up TechnoBuffalo on each. Got it ready to go here. Let's get it ready to go on the Nexus One. Okay. See if we can hit go at the same time, and we should be off to the races. So again, these are on the same Wi-Fi network. So it looks like the Nexus One has a pretty early lead here. It looks like it's almost done. And the iPhone is catching up. The Nexus One is done, and the iPhone 3GS is still going. iPhone's still loading. And now it's done. Certainly the Nexus One has an edge in speed, and I will tell you that this is not unique. I've seen the Nexus One have an edge in all the web pages that I've tested going head to head. So let's check out scrolling and navigation and see how things work here. Scrolling on the iPhone is very smooth. You very rarely get this sort of box pattern at the end. The processor can keep up with where you want to go. Scrolling on the Nexus One is much the same experience. Relatively quick, although I did find that the physics engine on the iPhone seems to be a little bit better, a little more smooth. On the Nexus One, it seems to be a little bit choppy, but certainly not bad. I've been using an iPhone since it first came out, so admittedly I'm used to the multi-touch capabilities. The pinch and zoom are really essential for me. The Nexus One does not have that. It has its zoom functionalities either via double tap, which of course the iPhone supports as well, or you can zoom in by the plus and minus right there. Now for someone like me who's used to the iPhone, I miss the pinch and zoom. If you're an Android user and you've never been used to it, you're not going to miss the features. So it's really going to come down to personal preference for what you prefer. Personally, I like the pinch and zoom, but I could probably get used to the lack of it just because of the big screen and the larger browsing room on the Nexus One. It's a very nice browsing experience, I'll definitely tell you that. And it's probably as close to the iPhone browsing experience as I've seen. So definitely Google did a fantastic job with the browser. So let's talk about text entry. Very important for really most of the things that you do as far as email and text messaging. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out the keyboards on each. We'll start with the keyboard on the iPhone. Go ahead and open up the Notes application here, and we'll see how things work. So typing on the iPhone is done really in one way, via its on-screen keyboard. And you can type it either in landscape or portrait. So you've got portrait here, rotate it over, and you've got landscape. And I want to preface this in all candor, let you know that I am an iPhone user, so I am probably more used to the iPhone keyboard, but be able to see the speed and the typing ability on each. So let's check out the keyboard here on the Nexus One. We'll go ahead and compose a new message. And there it is, and of course you've got a landscape keyboard as well. Let's go ahead and talk about the portrait keys first, and I'll do a quick test as to how this works, and I'll type "this is a test," and we can see how it comes out. You can see the autocorrect and the overall speed. So this is a test, pretty accurate. Let's try the same thing on the Nexus One. This us a teat. So not quite as accurate, but again, I'm a little more used to the iPhone keyboard. Let's turn this thing off to the side and see how it works now. I'm going to try the same thing again. This is a test. So a little more accurate. This is a test. It didn't quite correct it, but it wasn't bad. Now we're going to compare out-of-the-box functionality. And as I demonstrated in a previous video, the Nexus One also has speech-to-text, meaning I can tap that little icon right there, looks like a microphone, say the words I want, and the text automatically show up there. The iPhone has apps for that, but out of the box does not do it. So let's try landscape keyboard on the iPhone. So this is a test. I did spell something wrong, but auto-corrected it. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to personal preference. I'm probably more accurate on the iPhone again because I'm used to it, but I could certainly see myself becoming as accurate on the Nexus One. The larger screen space definitely lends itself as well to a bigger typing room. I do prefer the autocorrect on the iPhone, but the system on Android is quite good as well. So again, that's going to be down to which one you're used to and prefer. Let's go ahead and move on to our tests with customization and scrolling. We'll start with customization on the iPhone. This will be very short because there's not much you can do out of the box with the iPhone. A lot of people talk about jailbreaking and other things you can do. We're going to talk about just the stock iPhone customization ability. So the customization is pretty much limited to moving these rows of icons. I can move them anywhere I'd like, and I can manage them pretty simply. If I want to delete one, I just go ahead and hit the X. And that's really the extent of the customization that I can do on the iPhone, is move the icons to where they suit me best. On the Nexus One, for example, there's a lot more customization options that are available. Let me show you what those are. So for example, let's talk about home screens. I've got several home screens that I can use and manipulate. I think I have several home screens of apps on the iPhone. However, these are not dependent on applications being there. I've got 5 home screens that I can choose from. You can see this one here doesn't have anything on it. So we'll start looking at this one. If I hold my finger down, I've got a ton of options that I can pick to help make this phone my own. I can pick application shortcuts, I can pick a variety of widgets, folders that I want to go through, or I can pick wallpapers, both live wallpapers like you're seeing here, the ones that move around, or static images. So I can definitely have much more customization on the Android operating system, much more. This one's not even close to what I can do. I can make this device really my own. Instead of keeping pace and keeping things fair, I can also move the icons around just like I could on the iPhone. On the iPhone, the applications are stored just on your desktop by a series of icons. Here on the Nexus One, they're stored in this folder right here, which is a little bit new. Gone is the drawer that slides up, and you now have a pretty cool 3D looking array of applications. You can move these really anywhere you'd like. When it comes to customization, this is a no-brainer. Android clearly comes out on top. And it gives you much more ability to sort of do what you'd like a little bit more. Let's go ahead and talk about navigation now on both devices. Navigation on the iPhone is an exclusive just to your finger. Really the only hard buttons that you use are the home button, the lock, and the volume on the side. There's really not much else. But for navigation, you're really only using your finger, and it works very well. It's smooth, it's crisp, and you really know where things are. Navigation on the Droid is a little bit different. Of course, your finger is still your main point of contact with the phone. You can navigate very smoothly and scroll through all your screens. Since you have a lot of home screens, a lot of customization options, if I wanted to go from the screen all the way to the left to the one all the way on the right, it could take some time. So as far as navigation goes, they've added a new feature into Android 2.1. If I hold down the little dots in the bottom left or right corner, I get sort of a WebOS card-looking interface that shows me each of my home screens, and I can jump very quickly to where I want to go. So there certainly are a lot more navigation shortcuts that you get with the Android operating system. On the iPhone, if I want to jump back to the home screen, I can just hit the button once and it'll jump me back. And I also have a universal search functionality. I can double tap the home button if I want to be brought into my calls, or I can set a shortcut for that, but that's really the extent of it. As far as navigation here, I can again use my finger, or I can also use the built-in scroll ball, which I don't find terribly useful, to be honest. One of the features that I really do want to talk about is email and text editing. That's something that I do quite a bit. So let me show you what that looks like here. We'll go back to the note that we made earlier. Now, if I want to edit it, so right there it says this is a test. If I want to take out the is, it's quite easy on the iPhone. I take my finger, I hold it down, I get that little magnifying glass, drag it where I want, and I can go ahead and do what I like with it. I can delete it, I can edit it, or I can copy or paste it. Pretty easy. Let me show you how this works on the Nexus One. So let me go back to the messaging application. If I want to get rid of that us right there, I can sort of tap it and try and get close, but I've got a fat finger on a little screen. I can use the scroll ball to go to where I want, but it's not quite as accurate as getting that magnifying glass and knowing exactly where you want to go. It's definitely a little more inaccurate on the iPhone, or on the Nexus One. Something that I definitely wanted to for you to keep in mind and be aware of as you ponder your purchase. So let's talk about applications. Apps are a huge deal for the iPhone and Android, and they've both got thousands and thousands of choices. So you guys have probably seen the App Store on the iPhone. Let me show you what that looks like. There are right now well over 93,000. I believe it's close to 100,000 even applications right now. And the way the application store is set up is pretty simple. You can view by new, what's hot, or genius features. Check out by categories, top 25. And there are a ton of applications ranging from free to very expensive. And they certainly add a lot of additional functionality to the phone. And when it comes to app stores, there's really nothing better than the iPhone, in my opinion. But Android Market is a very close second, offering many, many more free applications. Let's take a look at Android Marketplace. You can see what that looks like. There's the icon right there, Market. And you've got a very nice looking interface. And you can view this by apps, games, or all your downloads. Let's go ahead and hit apps. And you can view it by all these different categories. And downloading is very quick and very smooth. You notice that scrolling is really fast on the Snapdragon processor. So let's take a look at how fast applications load and launch. Speaking of processor, so the iPhone 3GS certainly no speed slouch. And prior to the Nexus One launching, it was probably one of the quicker phones out there. So let's take a look at how fast standard applications open, things that you might use on a regular basis. Let's take a look at Calendar. So go ahead and open up the calendar functionality on each. And we'll see how quickly they both load. Nexus One loaded a little bit quicker, but not much, and not bad. And one thing that I would be remiss to not discuss when I'm talking about both platforms is multitasking. Android can handle multitasking out of the box, and handle it quite well. The iPhone certainly is not known for its multitasking capabilities. Let's next take a look at Maps and how quickly that loads. And that will take us very nicely into the Maps section of our comparison. So we've got Google Maps on each, different icons, but the same application. Go ahead and launch both at the same time. So loaded up a bit quicker on the Nexus One, but not that much. Certainly nothing you're going to notice, but overall the speed is a little bit faster on the Nexus One. Certainly you can take advantage of multi-touch on the iPhone, and as far as zooming, you have to use the plus or minus magnifying glasses. As far as Google Maps goes, you get the same functionality right out of the box. However, there's additional functionality that's built into the Nexus One. Let me show you what that looks like. You get Google Maps navigation. You now get free turn-by-turn navigation. You can see sometimes I struggle with these buttons across the bottom that are touch sensitive, that don't always respond as well as I would like. Let me go ahead and open that up. And right out of the box, I get turn-by-turn navigation, which I've demonstrated in previous videos. Worked very well. It'll say left turn on wherever you want to go, and it's free. On the iPhone, you have to either pay for an application or pay for a subscription. Certainly the edge clearly goes to the Nexus One when it comes to mapping. Okay, so let's talk about the OS overall, and we'll sort of wrap this up. There's a ton of features we can cover, but in the interest of brevity, We just can't go over everything. So as far as the OS is concerned, I think the operating system on the iPhone is very, very elegant. I've been using the iPhone since it first came out, and it just works. Certainly the functionality that you might get out of the Nexus One is not there as far as customization, and the navigation options are really limited to just your finger, whereas you can use the scroll ball on the Nexus One and the Android operating system as a whole. This again is going to come down to personal preference. Personally, I think the iPhone operating system has gotten a bit stale since it first launched. Other than the addition of the App Store and additional icons that you have now, it really hasn't changed that much since the first iPhone launched a couple years ago. So it's again really going to come down to personal preference. Both of these phones offer a lot of fantastic features and a lot of really great customization options and a lot of great usability. It's going to come down to what the user prefers. From a size standpoint, I'll go ahead and show you these one more time so you can sort of do a comparison. There's been a lot of talk about the Nexus One being thinner than a pencil. Well, I don't have a number 2. I do have a standard mechanical pencil. You can get a sense of thickness and size. It definitely does cover up the Nexus One. Overall, I've been really impressed with the quality of the Nexus One and the quality of the iPhone. As far as picking which one to choose, it's going to come down to which one, again, you like more. If you get 3G service with T-Mobile and AT&T, I recommend trying to get your hands on a Nexus One to play with. If customization is more important for you, the Android is going to be a great way to go. If you're looking for maybe more apps, then the iPhone is going to be a great way to go. If you're a Mac user and you like to keep things within sort of the Apple walled garden and all your photos are in iPhone and your music is in iTunes, it's going to be a sort of a pretty easy decision to make. However, if you're a little bit more open and you've got just MP3s in different places and you don't use iTunes or you don't really care about iTunes, this is going to be a great way to go for the Nexus One. A lot of other things we can talk about. I may discuss them in upcoming videos. Camera quality and video playback and music downloads, because both have their own download stores. But for this version, we just focused on the browser, text entry, customization, scrolling, navigation, apps, maps, and operating system. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to shed a little bit of light on and make the decision easier for you when it comes down to which phone you want to choose. The last thing I want to mention is pricing. Pricing on the iPhone 3GS is going to range, depending on whether you're on contract or not, anywhere from $199 to $599. And the same thing for the Nexus One. It'll run you as cheap as $179 or as expensive as $530. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm John Rettinger from TechnoBuffalo. For all of your Nexus One and iPhone needs, be sure to check out TechnoBuffalo.com. We're going to have a ton of coverage coming up. Hope you guys enjoyed. For exclusive content, you can check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/TechnoBuffalo, or check me out at Twitter, twitter.com/John4Lakers. John Rettinger, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.